Welcome everyone to the Five Pillars of Islam workshop. So happy to have you come and join us. May Allah bless us to have just a wonderful, relaxed conversation with Imam Seifullah. And I wanted to start off by just doing a icebreaker. And what we'll do is state name, year, major, and the pillar of Islam that you might be most interested in or curious about. So I will start it off with, let's see, Halima.
My name is Halima. You said state, right? Tennessee.
Oh, that's good.
I'm from Tennessee, and the pillar I'm most interested in is Salah.
Wonderful. And what about major and year?
Year is 2023. Major is government.
Okay. All right. And so you pass it on to someone else? Another student.
Anna? How you pronounce that?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Anna. I'm a seminary student. So I'm a graduate student who's interning at the Center for Religious and Spiritual Life. I'm in the second year of my program, graduating in the spring. And the pillar, I don't know the name for it, but the pillar I'm most interested in learning about is the one around showing up with integrity or justice or bringing justice to the world. Does that fall under one of the pillars?
We can.
No. Sorry, I thought.
Go ahead.
We could squeeze it into one.
I'm sorry, I thought that was one of the pillars. I have a lot to learn, clearly, so I'm looking forward to learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
you. Want to pass it on to someone?
Yeah, I'll pass to Uzma.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Uzma. I'm a junior, class of 2022, psychology major, and I'm most interested in the pillar of Hajj.
Wonderful.
Oh, and I'm passing it on to Aisha.
Hi everyone, my name is Aisha. I'm class of 2021, I'm a chemistry major. Currently living in around Boston. I live in Woburn, Massachusetts. What else? What else was it? Oh yeah. I'm also curious about Hajj, and I'm also curious about charity as well. I feel like in the next coming years, I'm gonna be making a decent income, and I want to know more about the logistics of how to give back, what are forms of charity and stuff like that.
Wonderful. And I'm Kim Alston, the Muslim Student Advisor in the Center for Religious and Spiritual Life, and I also serve as the Program and Communications Manager there. And I am interested in prayer, Salah. So I'm going to pass it on to you, Imam Seifullah. You have to let us know too.
What I'm interested in?
Yes.
Belief in Allah and charity.
Okay. All right. So what I will do is you may, I think some of you are very familiar with Imam Seifullah. He has been a community religious liaison with the Center for Religious and Spiritual Life, and he has been very helpful to us, and we have benefited from his wisdom, especially as it relates to helping us with halal dining on campus, working with staff and doing some trainings. And of course, he has a lot of wisdom as it relates to Islam, and he's helped us with our different programs we've had on Muslim conversations. I will just go ahead and read a very short bio on Imam Seifullah. We have with us today as our special guest, Rasul Seifullah, who is the resident imam of the Al-Baqi Islamic Center for Human Excellence. And I think that he is a little bit delighted because soon he will be retiring, but he will definitely be with us. And he is an experienced and resilient religious leader that has served as an instructor at the Hampshire County and also the Hamden County House of Corrections, as well as a Muslim chaplain at the Albert and Amelia First Interfaith Center at Westfield State University. He has completed coursework at Hartford Seminary, and he is a graduate of Pratt Institute in New York with a degree in chemical engineering. So he has a really wide kind of sense of wisdom and experiences. And he says that he's very passionate about community building and interfaith cooperation across diverse cultural and religious lines. So I am going to start off by asking some questions. And I want you to know that you also can ask questions. Like if you want to do follow-up questions, please feel free to just jump right in and do that. I have some questions that I've developed, but depending on the conversation, we can just take it in many different directions. And we want to make sure that we get to Salah and Hajj and charity, and definitely some element of justice. We're gonna get that in here. Okay, so Imam Seifullah, for the benefit of those who may be unfamiliar with the 5 pillars of Islam, can you start off by just telling us what are the 5 pillars of Islam?
Just briefly, because I know we're going to get into it deeper later on. It's belief in Allah, it's prayer, it's charity, fasting, and the Hajj. Those are the 5 pillars of Islam. So that's very, very brief. But as I said, we're going to get into it deeper as we go along.
Okay. And as we continue to delve deeper into the subject matter, why are the 5 pillars of Islam important in the life of a Muslim? And is there one particular one that you would say is more significant than the others?
It's important in our Islam, the 5 pillars, and they were established for us, the believers. And its purpose is to help us stay on the path. You know, some of the things we have to do by repetition until it becomes habit. And the same way you condition yourself as an athlete, where you have muscle memory, etc., it's the same thing with the 5 pillars. You practice them, you practice them until they become a part of who you are. So I think it's very vital to every Muslim to focus on that. Read and study Al-Islam, but focus on the 5 pillars.
Okay, so practice makes perfect, you would say?
Practice, practice, practice until it becomes a part of who you are, and then you'll be perfect.
These are primary obligations that Allah has given to us. And you mentioned that, you know, practice makes perfect. It keeps us on the path. Is that the primary reason you think that Allah gave us these foundational, you know, aspects of the faith?
It's the primary reason for them. Mm-hmm. These 5, if you can get these down pat, you're going to end up being the Muslim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you to be.
Yeah.
That enhances you completely, 360 degrees, just focusing on those 5 pillars.
Okay. We were talking before everyone came on earlier in the day, and you had a metaphor that I think is really helpful.
About the tent?
Yeah, about the tent. So tell us about the tent, Imam Seifullah.
What I was telling Sister Kim was that when you look at the 5 pillars, it's like a 4-cornered tent with a center pole. And the center pole is belief in Allah. And then you have the other four pillars. But if you take down that center pole, the whole tent caves in. So it's essential that you believe fully in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you give me a moment, I'd like to reflect back on some of that, just to show you what it means to believe in Allah. And I try not to commit too much to memory, and I like to have notes. But the first thing we have to know and understand is, who is Allah? Who is Allah? You know, and we can go into the Quran, and it'll give us a definition of Allah and put us in the right direction. Now, one of the things is Surah 12, which is Surah Ikhlas. And in it says, and I'm trying to find it in my notes, it says, say, that's a command. Say, He is Allah, the one and only, Allah, the eternal absolute. He begetteth not, nor is he begotten, and there is none like unto him. That defines Allah, you know, that we see in the Abrahamic faith traditions, and then the ones that are outside of that. We see a lot of things that's going on that's not clearly defining and not properly defining who Allah is. So the first thing it says, the one and only. There's not multiple gods. There's only one God. And we say as Muslims, Allahu Akbar, meaning Allah is the greatest. But actually the better translation is Allah is greater, meaning that no matter what you can think of, Allah is greater than that. So if you say the greatest, is he the greatest basketball player? Is he the greatest of all the different gods? There's only one God. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's paramount. Then the other thing that, and like I said, just forgive me because I want to make sure I touch certain things in this presentation. If you go to Surah 2, Ayah 255, it gives a more specific explanation of who Allah is. And the last resource is the 99 attributes of Allah. So if you go to Ikhlas, if you go to Surah 2, 255, and you look at the attributes of Allah, that's defining to you who Allah is. So I think it's very important that you understand that. And the other aspect of it, I know we talked about, is taking the Shahada. And I hope you don't mind me jumping around on this, but the Shahada is saying, I bear witness that there's no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Prophet Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. So when we say that, it opens up a lot of things that become our responsibility to follow through on. And one of it, when we say that Allah is the God, what does that mean? It means that we willingly submit our will to do Allah's will. We willingly do it. We're going to give up our free will to do what Allah says we should be doing. Now, it might sound easy, but it's not. Because by being in this society, we got a lot of issues and problems and damage done to us. So we may want to do things outside of what Allah wants us to do. However, there's a part of that Allah shows his mercy. And if you read the Quran, it'll tell you that Allah has prescribed on him, put on himself the rule of mercy. No matter what the situation is, he said, I have to be merciful. And I read where he said that even Satan, if he repented, I would have to forgive him. And when I first read that, I said, oh no, this is wrong. This can't be right. He's the the source of all the problems that we're experiencing in the world. But Allah said, I have to be merciful. And if Satan's intent is to seek forgiveness and change his way, then he has to be forgiven. So in turn, that means anyone whose intent is correct and proper can be forgiven no matter what they did. You know, so it's important to know and understand that there's nothing that you can do that can't be, should I say, handled in a favorable manner, except when you deny God. And when you think about it, why should he forgive you when you don't believe he exists?
I wanted to read the surah that you mentioned because you talked about the fact that it really does give us a better understanding of the identity of Allah and some of his qualities. So you mentioned in Surah 2, ayat 255, and it reads, Allah, there is no God but he, the ever-living, the self-subsisting, by whom all subsist. Slumber overtakes him not, nor sleep. To him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth. Who is he that can intercede with him but by his permission? He knows what is before them and what is behind them, and they encompass nothing of his knowledge except what he pleases. His knowledge extends over the heavens and the earth, and the preservation of them both tires him not. And he is the Most High, the Great. So I thought that was really, really good information.
I tell the people who are just coming into Islam to remember those. Surah Ikhlas, Surah 2, Baqarah, verse 255, and the attributes. And we know that there are 99 attributes of Allah. So when you're talking about God, you have to, it's hard to imagine this being, but you have to give a person some context to look at. And it gives them that contact. He's one and only. He doesn't have any children. So if any of you come from a Christian background like myself, we believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And we should pay attention to what we're saying. But being understanding of the differences between the Abrahamic faith, there's more that we agree on than what we disagree on. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran to hold on to the rope. And that's to hold on to the commonality. We fight over things that we cannot prove. And what I mean cannot prove is that these are beliefs, not reality. You can't see it played out in reality. Is there heaven or hell? Yes, we believe it, but can we prove it? So those things that we can't prove, we're arguing back and forth, trying to prove who is right and who is wrong, all the while the earth, the world, is going to hell. So we're not serving our purpose because we're supposed to be out here passing all the message to the people and bringing the earth, the people of the earth, to where Allah created them to be. There's one more verse, and I gotta look through my notes if you give me a minute, and it's Surah 162 to 164. Surah 6, 162 to 164. And this talks about the attitude that you should have as a believer. And in it says, say, that's a command. If you went to the Arabic, that's a command. Say, you say, truly my prayer and my service of sacrifice, my life and my death are all for Allah, the cherisher of the worlds. No partner hath he. This am I commanded, and I am the first of those who bow to his will. So you're telling my prayer and my service of sacrifice. It didn't say sacrifice, service of sacrifice. So it's not one sacrifice that you're going to make. It's something that's continuing. My continued service of sacrifice. My life, I'm willing to give my life for the cause of Al-Islam, and my death are all for Allah. You know, a person that doesn't give in charity definitely won't give up his life for Al-Islam. It won't happen. You know, so you're saying that I'm gonna do everything within my power to hold up this flag of Al-Islam. It says, say. Go ahead. Somebody had a question?
I just wanted to ask you if you can talk about some of the tests that you think we might undergo when we are declaring the faith or doing our best to practice the faith. What are some of the tests that, you know, some tests will keep you on the path and help you grow stronger, and there are some that diverge onto a place where we didn't think that we would ever be, but they're tests from God. You talk
Well,
about.
it's two groupings. It's the convert, and it's the person that grew up in Al-Islam. Family are Muslim. For the people that are converts, we were out in the world, and most of us experience everything out there, everything. So when we come to Al-Islam, the first trial is to give up all those bad habits, and we had a lot of bad habits. That'll be the first trial. And then you have those bad influences. And some of those influences are people that you used to associate with, or it's people that have different faith traditions than you have. I was raised Catholic. I went from grade 1 to grade 12 in a Catholic school. I was the only Muslim in my extended family, and we have a big family. My grandmother had 10 children, and each of them multiplied. And I was the oldest of the grandchildren. And when I became Muslim, nothing was said. And then one day, and it was at Thanksgiving dinner, my grandmother asked me, why did I become a Muslim? And the fireworks went off. You know? I was getting it from all sides. But anyway, so you have that to deal with if you were practicing a different faith tradition. And then you got your friends and other influences, television, etc., that's feeding your mind. And you have a lot of bad habits that you picked up along the way in your growth. Then you have Muslims who were raised in a Muslim country, or they know or been exposed to is Islam. And as I say this, I think about this. Just because you were raised in a Muslim country and the whole environment was about Islam does not mean you know your religion. Because I know people that never stepped into a church that can tell you about Christmas and all the other holidays and what they represent. You know, Christmas, birth of Jesus, the three wise men, they can go down the line, but it's not taken inside. It hasn't become a part of them, that faith tradition. But the other thing is people start judging, even your family. They know a little bit about Islam, maybe a lot, but they could be there and they could be, should I say, make you not like Islam. They pressing you, not doing this good enough. You didn't make your prayer. You didn't, you know, and you get tired of hearing that. So that could do two things. It could push you away, or it can encourage you to be a better Muslim. And when I was here for that interfaith program, I told Sister Kim, I could hear some of the sisters there who had a bad experience with their parents and family members, which caused them to modify Islam. Kind of giving them, I heard this at a Holyoke Community College where I was giving a talk. And a couple of people wanted to know, where are the progressive masjid? And what I always ask people around here, what do you mean progressive? What do you mean progressive? No, there's no extreme masjid, and there's no far left masjid. And Allah says that. He says, don't go too far to the left and don't go too far to the right. Take the middle road. So, enough of that. So it becomes difficult in many ways. And everybody's going to face difficulties. Even the people who have been Muslim for years, Allah says you're going to be tried at least twice a year. So that's coming.
And I think many people struggle, of course, with this next pillar that I'm going to talk about, which was mentioned as an interested area, and that is prayer. Prayer is the second pillar of Islam. There are many of us that struggle to make our 5 prayers, and then in between there are many prayers. And when there are special times of the year, different celebrations, there are even more prayers. So, but it is an essential element of the faith, and it's very important. It's accentuated in the Holy Quran. I wanted to just read an area where it is. That would be chapter 22, verse 77. And that's in actually the pilgrimage. But it says, "Oh, you believe, bow down and prostrate yourselves and serve your Lord and do good that you may succeed." So it's, I like the way that there's a connection between the act and the consequence. But the question is, what do you think the Quranic verses, and I actually did have another one, so I wanted you to kind of connect the two. This one is in the discrimination, which is chapter 25, verse 77, and it reads, "Say, my Lord would not care for you were it not for your prayer. Now indeed you have rejected, so the punishment will come." So they both show you talk about the extremes, so, either success or there's some level of penalty. And it seems to be connected with prayer. So can you speak on that, Imam Seifullah?
Okay, Surah 25:77. It talks about Allah doesn't need your prayers. He doesn't need them. And that's why it says, my Lord is not uneasy because you don't call upon him. For ye have indeed rejected him, and soon will come the inevitable punishment. Of what consequence or importance, and I'm reciting it again, would you be were it not for your supplication? And that's answered in Surah 51, verse 56. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I have only created jinns and men that they may serve me. So if you're not serving me, what purpose do you have, and what are you giving back? You're not worth anything. So you got to be serving Allah. One of the things I learned when I first became a Muslim, it says mere belief counts for naught. And I know you know this, Sister Kim. Mere belief counts for naught unless carried into practice. Meaning don't just say it. You got to walk the talk. You got to walk what you're saying. You got to be what you're saying. So if I don't see that in your actions and the things that you do, you're not really a Muslim. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I created you to serve me. If you don't want to do it, you have no purpose. So I'm not going to feel uneasy that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You have no purpose. So I'm not worrying about you. I see questions all over your face, Sister Kim.
Does anybody have a question about anything that we've talked about so far, or a particular area you want to elaborate on or give testimony about?
When I was in the military, they called people sharpshooters. And a sharpshooter is someone that's sitting in the audience or in your class, and they're trying to figure a way that they could assassinate you on the stage with a question or a comment. We had many of them in the military, and I met many of them out here. They just waiting to catch you. But don't let that make you refrain from asking the question that you sincerely want to ask.
Yeah, and you also can use the chat feature if you feel as though that would be a good way to do it. So feel free to do that. And I wanted to ask, you had mentioned about knowledge. And so my question is about the relationship that belief has with knowledge and understanding. And what is that relationship like? Because you can have different degrees of knowledge, different degrees of understanding, and how does that affect your belief?
Well, when we talk about the belief, we're saying the belief in Allah, because everything comes from Him. And everything that needs to be said is said in the Quran. He said what? This day I have perfected for you, basically your religion. Means that it's perfect as it is. Don't add anything to it. Don't take anything away from it. So if that's the case, then you need to focus first on your belief in Allah. And again, it goes back to the 5 pillars. Pray often. Pray when you're supposed to pray. That's going to build your individual relationship with Allah. And during your prayers, there's a formal prayer. And we know that. It's a raka. You know, you go through that, and you got different times for each prayer. You do that. But then you salam out, and then you do a dua, but also that's your time to converse with Allah. And I'm telling you to use that time. That's your personal time. So Allah, I'm having a very difficult time doing this. You know, show me what I can do to get out of this mess that I stepped in. Oh Allah, you told me that you would never put a burden on anybody that I could not stand or they could not stand. But I'm getting ready to break, Allah. I need some relief. And you promised me after difficulty comes relief. So I'm telling all of you, use that time after prayer to have your own personal conversation with the Creator.
And it sounds like the more maybe you become in tune with the Quran or with different practices, then you can actually speak the language to Allah that will help you to gain more understanding. Although I would suspect that when you're communicating with Allah, would He not accept any language depending on where you are? Naturally, it's respectful.
When you're talking about the proper language of a people,
Right,
or you
right.
talking about the stuff that's said in the streets?
No, I'm talking about, so, you know, because when you were asking the questions to Allah, you were basing them, it seemed, on some of the verses that are in the Quran. So when you read the Quran, that gives you the ability to conversate with Allah. Like you said, Allah would not give me something beyond my scope. You know, that's something that He has promised us, and He does not go back on His promises. So that gives you like the language so that if you are struggling with something in particular and Allah says that you should be able to succeed in that area, then you can have that conversation because you're using that particular language. But let's say you don't have that language, right? Then that still, I'm just saying that I would suspect Allah would, in His mercy and His beneficence and His compassion, you still will be able to have a conversation with Him, right, that can get you past whatever, you know, difficulty you're facing.
Allah will meet you wherever you are. And what I mean wherever you're not geographical location, it's just where you are in your mentality, where you are in your spirit. And they speak of spirit often in the Quran. And the spirit if you look at it as an engine that drives you. If you have a good spirit, you'll do good things. If you have a bad spirit, it's likely you'll do bad things. So it's your spirit. And the 5 pillars help you with having the proper spirit. But wherever you are, that's why I say it's your time. Whatever your language is, you know, speak to Allah. He knows when you're sincere. He knows when you're playing a game. You can't fool the creator.
Right.
Why is that? He made you. He knows what's in you.
You said self-subsisting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wherever you are, I emphasize taking that dua, that time after Salah, and using it for your connection with the creator, your personal connection. You know, I try to do this. I try to picture myself praying in front of Allah. He's there. In whatever form he's in, he's there. And what kind of person would I be before the creator? And that's the position I get into, that mentality I get into. But I also know he says that I'm closer to you than your jugular vein. Mm-hmm. And I hear the supplication of every being.
Right.
So I would pray in accordance with my spirit, and wherever I am in my life, I will pray. Mm-hmm. Now, as you learn more about Al-Islam, the more sophisticated your prayers may get to be. Mm-hmm. But it's not about that. It's about sincerity. Is right. This really how you feel? Is this really what's hurting you? Is this really hard for you to deal with? Mm-hmm. That's what you bring into Allah.
And that goes back to the intention that you are really famous for stating, that Allah judges us by our intention. He looks at our intention really in everything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because guess what? We really control very little in this existence. So if we control very little, we could set out to do something, and it doesn't turn out the way we thought it was going to turn out. However, our intent was to have it happen as we planned it to happen. Allah knows that. He knows that you did everything within your power to make things happen like you had set out to make it happen. So its intention is extremely important.
So I'm going to direct the conversation now to the 3rd pillar of Islam, which is charity, Zakat. And I just want to note this. I actually wrote this out. So I read that the pre-Islamic Meccans practiced the virtue of generosity for entirely different reasons, let's say from the modern sense of zakat, from charity. It was seen as an act of chivalry to boost a male's reputation or their fame, and it was considered a measure of honor. And it was done very often impulsively and thoughtlessly to the point where it could ruin or devastate the family. So you had a lot of women that took on the opposite thought, which is to be more niggardly because they wanted to or needed to protect the resources of the family. But we know that the Quran abhors niggardliness, right? Because charity is a pillar of Islam, and there are many forms that zakat can take, and it was completely transformed. That's what the pre-Islamic Meccans thought about, charity and sacrifice and generosity, but Allah has changed it and transformed it into something that is much greater. And so I wanted you to describe what this act of service is for the Muslim, zakat or charity.
Okay, and speaking of charity, zakat is a charity, but it's a tax. about 2.5% of your net worth. You're
Mhm.
supposed to give for certain things. You can't give for any of it. And let me refer to, I have a book here. And hopefully I can find it. Just give me a moment. I'm outside, my papers are flying all over.
It's good to take advantage of the vitamin D while we have it.
You know what, I can't find it, but it's only certain things that you can use Zakat for. You know, you just can't use it for any other things other than what Allah says that you should use it for. And I don't see it. But basically, it's for the poor. It's for the people who collect the taxes to pay them. It's for the wayfarer travelers. You know, it's for the common good of all the people. So, you know, if you're a politician or you're head of the government or whatever, you can't take that money and use it as you well please. It's specific things that that money is to be allocated to. And it's in the Quran. I just can't find it right now. And it seems like that's the way things happen at times. But go ahead.
No, I was just going to joke around and say it's a test.
It's the best.
No, a test.
Oh, it's a test. It is a test.
It seems like everything really can be a test, depending on how we handle it, right?
Mm-hmm. Again, I spent 23 years in the military, so a lot of who I am comes from the military, and we call that being a graduate of the Arthur Murray School of Dance. You used to dance, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did.
Yeah. So
For
you
many-
know a little bit more about the sister here.
Mhm.
But we used to always say, you know, you're a graduate of the Arthur Murray School of Dance because somebody asks you a question, you just dance around it. So I might have to draw back on that. Anyway, but it's specific things. You can look it up. It's easy to find, but Zakat is a tax. You know, some people try to dress it up in different ways, but it's a tax, 2.5% basically on your net worth. And it has specific places where that's supposed to be applied or given to. You can't just use it for anything. I'm gonna build a new bridge, you know, make a patio in back of my house. That ain't gonna get it. You have specific things. But then another form of charity is Sadaqah. And that's the greater charity.
Yeah.
And Sadaqah could be something big, it could be something small. My neighbor's out there shoveling snow by himself. I go out there and help him. That's Sadaqah. That's charity.
Yeah.
You know, it's things like that. I say good morning to a person. That's charity. That's Sadaqah. A
Yeah.
person is down, I go there to lift them up. That's Sadaqah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, somebody's hungry on the street, and you have to be careful about this, but you know, they're asking you for money to eat. You can give them money, but I've been out there long enough. I don't give anybody money, but I'll take you to McDonald's or wherever you want to go, and I'll buy you a meal.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, the first time I did that, I felt so good. The guy left me, and he was walking down the street, and he kept turning around and yelling down the street, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Take some more steps. "I really thank you, brother." And I said, that makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
somebody, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I'm looking at in the Hadith, and there is a story that was reported. Abu Musa reported the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. He said Sadaqah is incumbent on every Muslim. His companions said, "O Prophet of Allah, and what about him who has not anything to give?" He said he should work with his hand and profit himself and give in charity. They said, if he has nothing in spite of this, he said he should help the distressed, one who is in need. They said, if he is unable to do this, he said he should do good deeds and refrain from doing evil. This is charity on his part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that just gives,
It's anything that you can give to help somebody else.
mm-hmm.
It could be a pat on the back. You know, it could be a shoulder for someone to cry on. So they call that charity in its greatest sense. You got Sadaqah, which is, Zakat, which is a tax.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Sadaqah, which is, it embraces everything. Everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we had another curious pillar that two people were interested in, and that is the pilgrimage or Hajj. And I know that you have been on Hajj with your wife, Sister Medina. And I remember hearing stories from you, how wonderful that experience was. And we know that it's a lifetime duty for every Muslim that's able to do it. And going to Mecca and being on a pilgrimage with millions of other Muslims, that's got to be just a once in a lifetime rejuvenating kind of experience and following the footsteps of the Prophet. Can you just give us some more idea of what you experienced when you were there?
It was awesome. I mean, really awesome. And as you were speaking about it, I was feeling chills here. It was exciting. I mean, exciting. But you know, it's seeing the Grand Mosque. You've never seen anything as a house of worship as big as that is. As big as that is, it's marvelous and it's beautiful. Marble floors, you know. I mean, just beautiful. And then you have people from all over the world. And all the men are garbed in white, but the women are allowed to wear different colors. Now, some nations have the women wear, when they dress every day, they all dress in the same colors. And that's so they can be found easier, and the men can be there to protect them. You should still have somebody there that's looking out for you as a woman. And people get lost. People actually get lost at Hajj. And, you know, sometimes you don't find them, or they don't find their way back, you know, till a couple of days have passed. So you should always go, I'll say, quote, a chaperone. But also, depending on how men from different countries work with their women, we seen them come in just when prayers to start, and make a whole group of women get up out of their seats or their spots and move, because he wants that. Most men don't entertain that at all. You know, if you try to move any of their women, you got a problem. But it does happen.
That implies the justice that Anna was talking about.
What's that now?
I was just saying that that's entwining that element of justice that Anna said she wanted to understand about.
Yeah. In Islam, there's no weaker sex. And you're supposed to respect all Muslims and all people. You know, if you're better in something than I am, and I'm better in something that you aren't, and we're a couple, we become a better one. If you understand what I'm trying to say, we compensate. It's like yin and yang. Everybody familiar with that? where I have more in this area than you do. And so you take some of that strength and then vice versa, and we make a greater one together. I think that's when you end up with a pretty successful marriage. When you realize that people have weaknesses and people have strength, and how do you make that work? You know, but the beautiful thing is when you got 1 million people, or over 1 million now, 2 million, maybe encroaching on 3 million people in one spot. Very crowded, very, very, very crowded. But praying, and the most beautiful prayer is Fajr. And you go out there and people actually be crying just from the experience. You know, this guy over here one day is crying, and another day that guy is crying. Just the spirit and the environment, and, you know, hearing the Adhan call. And the brother who was calling it, he had one of these deep, resounding voices that it kind of reverberated through the entire building. I mean, you could feel it. You know, and one day I was in there reading out of the Quran, Fajr in the morning, watching the birds, and the birds fly around. They go in the same direction that all the believers are moving around. And I was out there in the dark, and tears just flowed out of my eyes. You know, and people speak different languages, but when you're doing the tawafs around, and some people in a hurry and pushing and knocking people out the way, and all you had to do is, salam, sister, salam, brother, assalamu alaikum. And, you know, people just quiet down and realize where they are and realize the mindset that they should be in, and they calm right down. The only thing is, don't get in front of them little sisters, because they want to stay together. They'll knock the hell out of you. But, you know, then to go between Mecca and Medina, Mecca's like New York City. I mean, it's going all day and all night, and people are hustling everywhere. You know, it's about the money. You go to Medina, it's completely different. Things are more settled. People are more polite. People are more casual, and they're going to and fro. And I tell you, experience we had when we left Mecca to go to Medina, we stopped in a couple of shops. We got there late in the evening, so we walked around, see what was there. And we looked at this merchandise in this one particular store, and we told the guy that, well, we'll be back tomorrow because we see some things here we want, and we haven't had an opportunity to exchange money or get money. So he says, well, take what you want and bring me the money tomorrow. Now, you know, in America, that ain't happening. Nobody at any mall is going to give you stuff and tell you to bring the money back the next day. But that's their mentality. And when they say, when the Adhan is played, everything stops. You could be in the middle of checking out your groceries in the checkout line. Everybody stops. The cashier, the people in line, you just leave everything as it is, and you go out and you pray in the courtyard or wherever. And that's amazing too. And I think of how nice would that be if we were doing that everywhere. You know, then it was visiting the sites. And you had to buy a couple of new, suitcases so you could put all your books in and clothing and everything that you purchased over there. But it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience. I mean, it's hard. It's not easy. It's probably easier now. I'll tell you what, humorous story. They got out in the tent city, they got urinals. But the people there had never seen urinals before. They didn't know what they were, so they set it up as something to do wudu in. They just hooked it up to water. It wasn't hooked up, and they sat the toilets on top of the ground. So if you use that, everything hooked up to water, everything was flooding out of it. So that was crazy. But it was funny for us to see somebody washing their face in a urinal. But that's because they didn't know, and they didn't know what tipping was. My wife, in the tent she stayed in, they gave the people that cleaned it up, they gave them a tip. But when it spread out through the camp that some Americans was giving away money. And they had a whole crowd around their tent and couldn't get rid of them. Everybody wanted some of this free money. But overall, it was a beautiful experience. I mean, absolutely beautiful. A word to the wise, though, get there early for prayer. Because if you get there too late and you get on the top floor in the sun, you never felt the heat that they have there. It may be a dry heat, but it burns. And I remember one day we took our time going to say prayer, and it was 5 of us that stayed together. And we ended up on the top floor, top tier of the Grand Mosque. And I know doing the Rockers, I said, man, if hell is any hotter than this, I don't ever want to see it, man. It was hot as hell. But anyway, that's my experience. If you can afford it and you're in good health, go. The sad stuff is the way some of those people live compared to the royal family. I mean, you see them in like dumps, city dumps. People are living in there. You see them begging in the street, and then you turn around and you see this palatial buildings and, you know, all this finery. That's annoying. That's annoying. And this is supposed to be the center of Islam.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Were there any, does anyone have like anything they want to ask about Hajj in particular? We're going to make sure that we get some questions in about fasting, which is the last pillar of Islam that we haven't spoken about. But if you're thinking about Hajj, I think you described it really very well. And the whole idea that it's the journey of Hagar too. Were you able to do that?
Oh yeah, it's part of
it. Yeah. Yeah. So that was great. So I'll ask a question about fasting, and we'll turn to that. We know many people know about Ramadan, the fact that in the month of Ramadan we fast from dawn really to sunset, and there's an abstention from food, from drink, from things that are lawfully, I'll just say, pleasurable, no arguing. And I wanted to ask you to talk about how that builds the character of a Muslim.
I think the biggest thing that you get out of fasting is discipline. And in that discipline, which helps you in your Islam, is you can control your urges, you can control your desires, you could discipline yourself to get up and say prayer in the morning, all these things, but it stems from discipline. And you know, the things that you have to refrain from is like eating. I mean, it's hard for people not to eat. You know, and here you are from dawn to sunset, not eating, and it's a long period of time during the summer months for us here. It's a long time, and the days are hot. It's very difficult. But for you to be able to do that for 30 days, 29, 30 days is marvelous. So that gives you the confidence that you can do what you set your mind on doing. The other thing is discipline, to read the Quran every day and stay up with your reading. That takes discipline. You got to turn the TV off for a while, for an hour, hour and a half, to read your Jews. That's discipline again. So discipline plays a very important in our Islam, I mean, of importance, important role in Islam. So I feel good about that. You know, and that discipline gives you confidence over self. You ever see people, they ate breakfast, they had a snack, they ate lunch, and late in the afternoon, I'm starving. And you're fasting. You say, how the hell could you be starving? You already had 5 meals. It's discipline. It's discipline.
Yeah, and so just where do you think where does discipline come from? Because we have to have it in order to be a follower, in order to successfully do all of the obligations of Islam.
The Ramadan is a month to regenerate that spirit into you. It's like going back to the basics and getting yourself back together. So when you get out of the month of Ramadan, that you're a better Muslim than you were when you went into that Ramadan. So through the years, you should be progressing. And at the beginning of Ramadan, you should set goals for yourself. I want to do this, I want to do that. I'm short in this, I got to pay attention to that. Don't have 10 or 15, 2 or 3 things is good enough. Here's what I want to focus on. That discipline, Allah gave us everything that we needed to be successful in this life. That's why it says the merciful benefactor means he gave you everything that you need to be successful, and the merciful redeemer. He also knows with that limited free will you have and the abilities that you have, you are going to make mistakes. So he inscribed on himself the rule of mercy. So he's the merciful redeemer. So that discipline is in you. And what I like to add, the ultimate goal in life, and it states this in the Quran, is to get to the hereafter, to be with the Creator for eternity. That's the ultimate goal. But getting there, you have objectives. The main objective is to get yourself back to your original nature, the nature that Allah created you in, the nature of the being that he created you to be. And so you have to get all that stuff out of you that you took in from the world to get back to that original nature. Meaning that you purified yourself. You back to the original person.
Does
You know, go ahead.
think the Ummah has the family, the believers of Islam, do they have a part to play to help in that purification process?
What do you mean by that? Do they have a part to play?
A part to play in terms of, we know that the relationship is a personal relationship between you and Allah, but at the same time, Muslims belong to a community of other believers. And so what kind of responsibility does the Ummah have in creating the kind of community that would help one to get closer to Allah? Is there a responsibility that
there is a responsibility. And one of the things is, and this is in the Quran too, Prophet Muhammad is the example for us to follow. And we are the example to the rest of the world. Believers follow Muhammad. And then we get the people, by being a positive example in our communities, to follow us. When I say follow, I don't mean be one of my disciples or anything, but the example that I set as a human being. So everywhere you go, everything that you do should be at the highest level. And if you read the Hadith, then you can see that. You can see that in every encounter, Prophet Muhammad is proper and respectful. He's kind and he's considerate. You know, he's strong when he needs to be strong. He's meek when it needs to be meek. Allah says he is our example in flesh and blood to help us develop. But the goal on this planet is worldwide community life. And the only way we get that worldwide community life is if we're in sync with one another. We don't have to speak the same language, look alike, like the same things, none of that. But we have to be in sync and have that common goal. And that common goal is peace. But we're not talking about the peace, the absence of war. We're talking about peace of mind. I think most people want peace of mind. Because you got problems, they go to bed with you.
And can that also go back to Anna's point around justice in terms of peace and justice?
Well, I say, and I teach that justice is the main thing that we should be going after. It should be the main thing. Because it said be just, even if it's against yourself. Be just. Under all circumstances, be just. And that's difficult, you know, when you're a man or woman of power and authority, or you think you're better than, you know, it's hard. But, you know, someone told me this when I was working in the system. They said that the average person, if he's facing a judge, he wants mercy. He or she wants mercy.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's somebody else that's going before a judge, you want revenge or justice.
Right.
Mercy for me, justice for them.
Mm.
You know, but Allah says, be just under all circumstances. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, right? It definitely is hard to imagine. But we've talked a lot about many different things, all of the 5 pillars of Islam. And I'm wondering if anyone has any question that has to do with either historical or ethical, spiritual or moral. Is there anything hidden that you may have detected yourself, or just something that you have learned that maybe we haven't necessarily touched on, but it does have to do with some of those other areas? Does anyone have something they can offer, or Imam Seifullah, if you want to touch on it, you can as well.
It's not a question, it's more of a comment. Going back to the idea of intention, I didn't learn until recently, like, the role of intention and how important that is when, like, doing anything in Islam, like prayer and all that stuff. And I guess, like, I just wanted to reiterate that point. Like, there was one thing I learned during Ramadan about, like, reading the Quran, because, like, something that I'm very insecure about is my Arabic pronunciation, and I, like, get very discouraged when I read the Quran. And then I read somewhere that those who struggle with the words actually get, I think, twice the reward of those who recite it beautifully, and it's because it's the sincerity that counts and the intention. I thought that was really beautiful, so I just wanted to add to that point.
Well, who's making the greater effort?
Mm-hmm.
The one that's facing a lot of difficulty.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you get more blessings. Allah is mindful of that. That's part of his mercy. He's got, throughout the Quran and in the Hadith, you'll see that there's so many ways that you can make up for sin. You know, I'll bless you 10 times over for your prayers to absolve you of this. One of the things that's beautiful about Al-Islam and how Prophet Muhammad was pushing people to get away with, to do away with slavery, was when you committed certain sins, he would tell you free a believing slave.
Mhm.
He was trying to end slavery. So you just imagine, Trump, how many slaves would he have to free? You're the only one I can see, Sister Kim. Yeah, what the hell is he talking about? But anyway, that shows you that there's ways that you can make up for the sins that you committed all throughout the Quran. In the hadith I just read, it says a man, charity, gave a grain to somebody, and it turned out to be a stalk of corn. And he says on that stalk, it had 7 ears, and 7 ears produce 100 grain
Mhm.
per ear. So
Yeah.
that's 700. And then so the guy now can put 700 seeds in the ground. Being an engineer, I calculated out, and it's 490,000 plants you now have with 7 ears on it. So from that one small grain, look what you have in 2 seasons.
Mm.
So when you give in charity, it may be small to you, but to the world, it may end up being a great thing, or a great thing. Any of you taking economics? Anybody had to take economics? No. In economics, they teach you terms. That's why they talk about keeping money in your neighborhood. So if I spend $1 with you, and you spend $1 with somebody else, and he spend another $1 with somebody else, when we fill out our income taxes, I have to account for that $1, right or wrong, or you have to account for it as income. And that same $1 goes over to this next person, and he has to claim that same $1 as income. So
Mm.
that's not $2 being counted as income. Give it to another $3. So they call that 3 turns. And that's how it works in the economy. That's why you make so much, a community benefits so much if they spend it within a community. It's those turns. And the more turns you get, the more money your community makes.
Mhm.
For us, you know, for most African American communities, they get paid, and that money goes right out of the community. So you get 0 turns.
Mm.
So it doesn't, your salary doesn't benefit your community.
Mhm. And that's not just. I wanted to read from the Quran again, and about charity. It says that if you manifest charity, how excellent it is, and if you hide it and give it to the poor, it is good for you, and it will do away with some of your evil deeds, and Allah is aware of what you do. So that pillar of charity is really, really important if you are trying to work out some of the things that maybe you're not proud of, or some transgressions, or some things that you could have done differently, and you're asking Allah for help with. Charity, very, very.
And even charity is based on intent,
Mm-hmm.
because if I'm spending, they're raising money, and I say, okay, I'll give $1,000, but my intent is to get everybody to focus on me and say what a great man I am.
Right.
Allah says you lose those blessings, because when they praised you, and that was your intent to get that praise, then you already got blessed. So when you get to the pearly gates and you get judged, they say, no, you don't get credit for that. You got blessed back there. It doesn't count again. So it's based on your intention, so you can say it. If somebody's raising money and you got to raise your hand, you letting it be known that I'm ready to give the money whatever they're asking for. But if I do that just so people look at me and say, what a generous man, I get no blessings for that. So it's better, even better. Getting the money and donating the money is great. But if I keep it to myself and I can't keep it to myself, that's even better.
Mm-hmm.
Flip side of it is, don't use the giving of your money to have people pay homage to you.
Yeah. We are getting close to our time where we're going to be closing out. And so I just want to use this to deliver a couple of announcements. One is that we do an Al Noor prayer lunch, a lunch meeting every Friday. And we're going to start it at 12:15. 12:15 seems to be a better time for students. But if you ever want to come, please do bring someone. If you have to come in late, that's fine as well. And if you want to offer something or want to be part of the agenda, then you can always drop me a line too. I'm happy to incorporate things that students want to do. And we are going to do a workshop on racial justice, and we're going to be talking about different stories in the Quran that demonstrate justice and in many different capacities. And inshallah, we'll have a date sometime this semester. And there are some lectures that are coming up that you can look forward to that Al-Iman will be offering. They have some really great ones. They're working on it. I know there's one the beginning of October. Aisha, do you have that date and know what that one is?
I don't think I remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know it was Dr. Camila, but I don't remember the details. But we will be making sure that we get that information out to everyone. And so I think it might be good for, we've talked about the 5 pillars of Islam, and I think we've had really just a wonderful, rich kind of conversation about it. And so I am asking this really of everyone and anyone that wants to answer this. How can the believer strengthen their resolve to practice the 5 pillars of Islam? So I'm not going to just put that on the email. I'm going to say that maybe everyone can offer something to help us, with this. What do you think one can do?
What was the question again? How can the believer?
Yeah, how can the believer strengthen their resolve to practice the 5 pillars of Islam?
I mean, I guess me personally, just like surround yourself that reminds you of Allah all the time. Because if you're a believer and you're surrounded by, like the saying goes, you are who you hang around with. And I learned that the hard way. And I feel like once I changed who I was surrounding myself in and got with people who are actually reaching the same goal, I strengthened my belief somehow over the year.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, that you need to surround yourself with believers, and then you'll feed off of one another. And over a period of time, you'll be getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger until that becomes a habit.
Wonderful. Anybody else have any advice for strengthening your resolve to practice the 5 pillars of Islam? And you can think about, even if it's just one particular area that you think would be good. I mean, I can offer around prayer to just stop and pray. It just seems as though it's so easy to make excuses or to get involved with something else, but it's there for a reason, as Imam said, for us to stay on the pathway. So if we don't practice it, and I have my set of difficulties, like I'll watch that program late at night and I'm tired as ever, but then I knew that I was going to be tired. So why didn't I either pray beforehand, make particular plans so that you will be successful. And it takes forethought. And then if I'm not going to think about it, then I have to surrender so that I do it even if I don't want to do it. And then, because I find that when that happens, then I really get the benefit of it, because then it's like, wow, I didn't want to do this. I didn't feel like doing it, but wow, I really got so much out of it. So it's the surrender, and it's the planning, and it's, and those are the two things that I would say, particularly around prayer.
You know, and I've been to many countries in the East, and what I found just being in that environment, making prayer was so much easier than it is here, because everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. And in every community you go to, there's a masjid within walking distance, a couple of blocks. So even when you get up in Fajr, you have this drove of people going to the masjid to do prayer. And it's easy. And then you start meeting people and et cetera, and just becomes easier and easier.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's just the right environment.
Right.
So that helps a lot. And
Right.
that's why the stretch is on developing community life.
Mm-hmm.
You got to develop community life. Most Muslims don't see that.
Meaning that they don't see that would be very beneficial, and that's a method of helping them achieve these goals. Is that what you mean?
No, I think that they don't see the value of establishing community life. I don't mean just in a masjid, but in a community.
Mm-hmm.
And the masjid should be a center where you are sending out disciples, showing people, look at all these possibilities, and we're showing you how it can get done. You know, it's very little crime in Saudi Arabia, and I've seen the results of that. You steal something, you're not in jail for months at a hand waiting for a judgment to be made. That judgment is made that day.
Mm-hmm.
And you go in and you come out missing a hand. I'm not saying we should do that, but that's the community that's established based on how they understand the Quran. But it should be about community life. It's not about individuals. It's not about, individuals are the foundation of that. That's why we got to clean ourselves up too. But we're moving forward as a group. What does Minister Farrakhan and them speak about? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Community. We need to do our own thing. And that's what we need to do. All those masjids, they should be centers. Centers of everything that's going on, of good. Incorporating all that's good in that community.
So we are wrapping up. We have 2 minutes left. Does anyone have anything they want to say? I can see that we're getting, a little bit fatigued. We've been on Zoom for a little while, but it was really a great conversation. We're going to do it again. I have to really thank you, Imam Seifullah, for opening up your heart and your mind and your wisdom and sharing it with us and the Center for Religious and Spiritual Life. And inshallah, we will do this once again. I want to thank Anna and Usma, she had to leave, but Aisha and Halima, and then you, Imam Seifullah, for being with us. May Allah bless everyone. And you were going to say a short dua for us, Imam Seifullah?
You know what I like to do? I like to have one of your students say something, lead a prayer. You can select them, or you can show me all the pictures and I'll pick one. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Do Al-Fatiha. Come on now. You know, sometimes sisters are in a situation where they're the only ones that know how to do prayer. And guess what they have to do? Lead prayer.
Mm-hmm.
So come on, you graduating from Smith College. I know you know one surah. Express yourself. We can't get anybody. His sister's talking about, I'm gonna leave here and make a lot of money. How you gonna make a lot of money? You can't say 2 words. So let's turn it on her. Is she a psychology major or something like that?
Who was the psychology major? Wait a minute. No, I think, let's see. I don't know who the psychology major was. So I'm going to turn it over to either Halima or Aisha. Do one of you say the Al-Fatiha or say it together?
I nominate Halima.
How about if we all say it together?
Okay, we can all say it together.
Now, I want everybody saying it together.
Okay.
All right.
Well, Anna's going to listen. Anna may not know the Al-Fatiha, but you will be able to look at the first surah of the Holy Quran. You can go back and you'll be able to read that. And that's what the Al-Fatiha is. But we're going to say it in Arabic.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for
Walaikum assalam.
That's a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.